So the objectives of this webinar, I'm going to take you through the functionality of Survey 123, the components of Survey 123, and then we'll create a form on Survey 123 to just understand how the application actually works. For the presentation structure, we'll start by designing the questionnaire. So I think I'll start by showing you a Word document that I have designed, and then we'll transform that into a questionnaire so that we can actually see how it actually works in an actual scenario. We'll publish that survey, which will be the second bit of the demo, and then we will access the survey results. So that means on section 2, which is publishing number 2, the publishing of the designed survey, I'll actually share the link on the chat box. Then you can all try to have a feel of what the survey looks like. You can fill up a couple of the survey that we'll have created, and then we can be able to access the results that all of you or some of you will have managed to fill up on the survey form. So I'll try to make this as interactive as possible so we can actually benefit from the demo and the session. Okay, thank you. So when it comes to field application, Survey 123 is an ArcGIS application. It's a field application, and this means it is purely designed to make your field workflows efficient. So it's a data collection tool. And what we talk about when we talk about field application, it means that you can actually install it on your mobile phone. Yes? Is there, I think I had someone with a question. Are we together? I think for the audience, we'll just try to mute all your mics so that we can reduce the echoes and the background noises from your end. Okay. Okay. So I'll go back to that. So when you're talking about Survey 123, Survey 123 is an ArcGIS application. It is a mobile application, and it is used to collect data. So this means that at the end of the day, the survey that you're going to design will be accessed on your mobile phone, simply because field officers are expected. We all expect field officers to go to the field with a mobile phone, and that's why this is a mobile application. So we'll design the form on the desktop, but at the end of the day, you're able to access the form anywhere, anytime on any smart device, and that's the power of the application. So the advantages come in that we are getting rid of all your paper workflows. So you're no longer transferring data from a hard copy survey form and then moving it. The results come in, then you have to put it on Excel and finally try to analyze it. This is an end-to-end solution. We are getting it right from the start, where we're designing the survey, pushing it to the cloud, getting data into the survey while maintaining our data integrity. So the advantages comes in that you're able to capture data anywhere, anytime on any smart device. And that means there's the flexibility and accessing the results efficiently. You can reduce the so the other advantage is that you're able to design the smart surveys that enable rapid data collection, and finally we'll also be able to analyze results in real time. So that's the power of Survey 123. So I'll just get us through how the field operation looks like. This is how field operations overview looks like. For anyone who's worked with data on the field, there are a couple of operations that come into play. So the first bit of this is generating, and generating comes in when you're trying to access the need of your audience. So for example, if you want to understand during this scenario, KNBS wants to understand the impact of COVID on businesses. So the first thing they'd want to understand is on the ground, what are the locals saying? What are Kenyans saying? What are business people talking about when it comes to COVID and how it has affected businesses, both SMEs and small scale businesses? And this is where the generate comes in, trying to understand the need for the data collection process. And then the second bit is now coordinating efforts into that, where you want to you now bring in the field officers managing the assignments that come into play before you actually get to the data collection process. And then finally, last but not least, you come to the navigation, where you actually now go to the field to get this information. Navigation comes in terms of routing. where is the surveying going to take place? If KNBS decides to do impact of COVID on businesses in Nairobi, which part of Nairobi is it? So navigation comes in where you're bringing in efficiency to the field personnel, where they can actually navigate to the exact survey location and actually get to understand where that project is taking place. And that's also another application that comes into play, where you're using Navigator for ArcGIS to get to the location. And then now what we are doing today is capturing that information, which is survey 123 for ArcGIS that you're going to focus on. So capturing means that you're actually collecting the data. What is the name of the respondent? What's the name of the business? What's the impact of COVID on this business? Is it to a big extent or to a small extent? And that's just one scenario of a survey that can take place. And then finally, monitoring of those results. What does the survey say when it comes to the impact of these businesses? And that's the monitoring bit. So I will have a series of field webinars, and for now we'll focus on survey 123, which is one of the applications for capturing data. Next week we'll focus on collector for ArcGIS, and then the week after that we'll focus on how to monitor results on that. So we'll go through this entire workflow as we go on, which is basically a cycle which will keep going on from generating, coordinating, navigating, and then capturing data. So when you're talking about survey 123, when I talk about a questionnaire, it's basically hard copy paper. It's the way it's like a census. It's basically how the census took place. That's an example of a survey. The only difference is that the census was at a bigger scale. But when you're talking about designing a survey, I'm purely talking about a hard copy form that we normally use and go to the field to understand information about the respondents we are going to interview. So it's basically a hard copy paper which is on the right, and you're transforming that to a digital form. And the advantage of this is purely being able to get data fast enough. There's efficiency, you're streamlining your operations, but at the same time you're also able to get insights from your data. And that's what we're going to learn today. How do we transform a hard copy paper or a survey form that I will display on a Word document, and then we'll together transform that to a powered up survey form that you can all access as we do this webinar. And then you can also fill in data, and then we'll all access the results at the same time. So you can actually have a feel of what the process would actually look like. So the first bit of what we'll do is designing and creating the survey. For that, we'll use, for this scenario, we'll design a form for KNBS. We'll do a scenario for KNBS where we want to understand what's the impact of COVID on businesses. I thought I would use that scenario due to what you're currently facing economically to just make it quite relatable to everyone in the audience. So we'll start by designing and creating the survey. And then number 2 is collecting information. And for that, I'll need your help, for all of you. I'll share the link so that you can all try to fill up the survey we'll have designed. And then we'll all be able to view step 3, which is viewing the results of that survey. Okay, so for a start, how we're going to go about this, survey 123 has 3 different components, and we are all going to access all these 3 components as we go on. The first component is when you're designing the survey. We're going to use survey 123 for that. It's called survey 123 Connect. And we'll understand why it's called Connect. The reason why it's called Connect is the data flows both ways. As soon as you publish your data to the portal, which is an online platform which will enable all of you in the audience to access the survey, you can actually connect back to it and pull it back to desktop, do your live edits and push it back again. So it allows data to flow both ways. So when you've designed the survey on the survey 123 Connect, we'll push it to the cloud. You'll be able to access it on the survey 123 web application, and then now the field officers can now get the application through their mobile phone. So the heart of the system is the web. It's basically the cloud. So without the cloud, we can't push data from the Connect to the mobile phone. So the cloud is what enables the 2 connections between the desktop and the mobile phone. So after we've done the survey on the desktop, we'll push it to the cloud, and then the mobile workers can access it through the mobile app. So the app is accessible on Android, iOS, and Windows. So that's also, there are no limitations to using the application. As long as you're running on a smart device, then you're able to access the application. So this is just to show you what we are trying to come up with. It's basically the manual you're seeing on the right hand of your screen, and you're transforming it to the manual you're seeing from the left to the right. So the arrow points to what we've transformed it to. It's a digital form, but we've maintained everything else on that particular form. So I'll start with that demo on how we can go about using this survey. So we'll start by constructing a couple of questions. So for that, I'll display the questions on my screen. I think everyone can see that. So these are a couple of questions I came up with to just give us a scenario of what this survey would look like, and also to save on time. So this is a Word document with some of the questions that I want us to use during this session. So the title is The Impact of COVID on Local Businesses, and this is a survey being undertaken by KNBS. This was inspired by what they recently actually presented on socioeconomic impact of COVID, and I thought it would actually be good to understand how technology can make this very seamless and also very insightful at the same time, which is location intelligence. So this is what the survey looks like. We have demographics information. We'd want to understand the gender of the respondent, disability, and also the age. And these are the demographics you're getting. Then we also want to understand the business information. What's the name of that business? What's the organization category? Is it a locally registered company? How long has it been in operation? The scale of business, and then the business sector. Is it an agriculture, tourism? And then finally, now we get to the COVID questions. So the first one is, would you say COVID has affected your business? To what extent? How do you think government can assist? So these are just some of the questions I came with on the fly, but I want us now to work together to transform this into a survey 1, 2, 3 form, and then you can all fill it up as we go on. So for a start, survey 1, 2, 3, before you start working with it, you have to do to install the application on your PC. So I already installed that. So when you go to all programs, you'll find survey 1, 2, 3 connect for ArcGIS. So this is what I will launch. So we'll give it some time. So when you launch the survey, what you're seeing on my screen are different surveys that I have actually created. But if you're launching it for the first time, you'll only have the new survey bit. And also, let me go one step back to just give you an idea of what it looks like when you launch it for the very first time, so that I don't skip any step. Just give it 1 minute. Okay. So these are all the recent surveys. Now, since you're doing a survey for the very first time, so I'll come here on new survey. Now, anytime you click on new survey, this is what happens. It launches a window, and it works. It's the same concept of what most programs use, like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office. When you launch one document and you had not renamed them, it piles up as in ascending order. So this is form 32, meaning I have 31 other forms. So this just shows the naming protocol that it uses. And this is actually, you can actually change this. So for us, it's understanding the impact of COVID on local businesses. I'll just name that. And then on the right side, on the left side, there are templates. So you have templates, you have samples. So the beauty of the product is that it's really flexible, and it allows you to actually plug in into other existing surveys, which you can actually just edit and customize it to your own liking. For example, you have things like an arrest form. So this is for people who would be interested in creating that. We have for people in conservation, animal sightings. So this is also something you can borrow from. So these are pre-existing surveys that you can actually look at and borrow some of the columns or fields they have. We already have COVID templates that have come up, inpatient screenings for those in the health sector. We have templates for that. We have a symptoms check, testing request. There's cropping for those in agriculture. So it's a very flexible site that allows flexible application that comes with some inbuilt templates which you can leverage on. And just understand what are other regions what are other regions using in terms of all these themes, and then try to borrow some of the components. So for this particular scenario, I want us to build a survey from scratch. So we won't use any existing templates, we'll build our own. So I'll come to templates and we'll go with the advanced option and not the basic option due to a couple of things I want to add on to this survey. So I'll click on advanced and then I'll say create survey. So it will launch the form for us to start creating the survey. So as it's doing that, when you're using the survey 1, 2, 3, it's basically an XLS form. So that's what the application actually is. You notice when you look at the interface, when you're looking at the interface, you notice you have all these tabs which are normally on your Excel, which is very familiar. This is purely an Excel sheet. So the only difference is that it comes with pre-configured columns and worksheets. So you have, you can all attribute to it that you do not have all these columns already pre-configured on a usual Excel sheet. So we've kind of created this as part of the application. So these columns are what enables the survey 123 form. So I'll start by the first worksheet, which is the survey worksheet that you're seeing on my screen. So the survey worksheet is where you're actually designing the questions on your survey. So the three most important columns in this survey are the first three: the type column, the name column, and the label column. Now, these three columns is what powers up the survey. The type column is the type of question you want to ask. And you notice when I click on this drop down, these are the different types of questions you have. So you have a text question, a select one question, select multiple question, a geopoint, a date. So these are all types of questions that you have. Then the name column is a unique identifier for each individual question. So that means this is what goes to the database. It does not allow any special characters or spaces within the survey form. So and then the label column is what the audience are able to see. So I'll try to make this relatable so that you can see what I mean by the three columns. So let's go back to our survey form, the Word document. So this is the Word document. We'll skip this for now, this section 1. We'll do this as we go on, but I want us to start with the first question: the gender of the respondent or the sex of the respondent. So when you come back to the survey form, how do we put this on the survey? So I want to demonstrate that on this on the form. So let's go back to our survey form. So we want to capture the gender. So I'll come here. That's the question. That's the label. So you can type something like gender of respondent. That's the label. This is what your end users are seeing, the label column. Now the name column, the end user is not seeing this. This is what you, as the person who's configuring and who is creating it as the codes for that particular question. And as we go on, you'll understand why this column is very important. So for now, I'll call this code, this is the gender question. And then again, since it's a gender question, we're trying to understand if it's male or female. So automatically, if it's male or female, it's a select one question. It's not a text question. And by select one, it means that we're giving them options by saying male or female. So that's why I'll go automatically with the option of select one. So I'll pick that question, that column. Then you notice when you do that, it adds itself, these are parentheses, is it a parenthesis, that box, and then in between it's written list name. So here it's telling you list the name column. This is the name column. So I'll come here and replace all this, since that's what it's telling me, to replace everything inside there with the name column. So I'll replace that with gender. So that's what it looks like. When it tells you this, you say yes, continue with these changes. Now, when you've done this, the next thing is you have gender. So where do we put the choices? So that's the next question. So for gender, it's male or female. Now you notice on the survey form, there are a couple of worksheets. So the next worksheet is the choices worksheet. And then the aim of this choices worksheet is to enable you to type in the choices for each of your questions. So for our choices, we want to give them male or female. So these choices that you're seeing come pre-existing with the survey to just guide you on there. So these are, for example, is for yes or no questions. This is for rating questions. But for us, we are doing ours afresh. So ours, it's male or female. Again, the first three columns are very important. As we go on, we'll explore the other columns. So the label column is what the end user wants to see. So for us, you want to ask them if it's male or female. So that's the label. And then the name column, again, does not allow for any spaces or special characters. So for this, I'll put a code, 1 for male, 2 for female, or 0 for male, 1 for female. And then here, list name, we come back here. The list name here, it's the code, it's the gender. That's how it will know that for these questions, I need to give the audience the gender questions. So this is the gender question. Both of these are the gender questions. Now, if I save this survey, I want us to see what happens to the survey form. It converts it as you're doing this to see what the survey would look like when you finish configuring it. So this is what it looks like: gender, male, female. So you notice it's only picking up the last columns. On the choices field, it's picking the label column. That's what the audience are seeing. It's male or female. And on the survey column, it's picking the label column. So this is where you type in all your questions. So let me try one more thing. So let's say we want to pick up, let's say we want name of respondent. So let's add it up here. So there, all the other interactivities are like an Excel sheet. You can add a row on top or below. All that is still maintained. So let's type name of person, name of respondent, name of respondent as a first question. Now this time, by default, since it's name of respondent, we cannot give them choices. So we want the field enumerator to type the name of that respondent. So I'll put here name, but this time the question changes since it's someone typing in their name. So I'll change this to a text. And then I want you to see how the survey form responds so that you can see the difference between select one questions and a text question. So when you put a text question, then I'm able to type in here. So you have name of respondent, gender. So if I come here, I can actually type my name. That's it. So that's the name of the respondent. Then gender, female or male, depending on who the respondent is. So I think we have a feel of how it works. So I want us to try a couple of more questions, and then we can move on to sharing the survey. So let's go back to our survey form. The other thing we wanted to ask was the disability. So this has also been very important with government pushing for inclusivity. I decided to add that question as well. So for disability, when we go back to the survey form, I want us to see how it looks. When you look at this question, you notice I actually have choices, right? I have hearing, visual, mental, none, and other. So by default, this is a select one question, since someone or a select multiple, depending on how you want to ask the question. But for now, we'll go with select one. So someone can select what form of disability. So I want you to understand why we are going with that, simply because of the question, the choices I already have for my audience. I've already pre-configured my questions. So I'll go back here and have the disability. I'll start with the label. So I normally prefer starting with the label because I feel like I find this easier, but you can also start from this other end. So this is disability. The code for the question again is disability. This time again, I'll come the drop down, select one, and I'll replace everything in the list name with disability because that's the question code. And why this is important again is because we want to go back to the choices worksheet and give the choices for the disability. So I'll come to choices. I'll type in the code again. This is the disability. And remember that this has to be very similar. If all this is uppercasing or lowercasing, the code needs to be transferred. So sometimes even for just to make it really accurate, you can copy this and come here and paste it on the list name as well to just make it really accurate. And then depending on the number of choices you're giving them. So if I say I'm giving code 1, code 2, code 3, code 4, and code 5. So for code 1, sorry, let me just go back. I have hearing, visual, and mental. Hearing, visual, mental, none, and then other, right? So that's what it looks like. So let's save our survey form and see what happens to the questionnaire when we do that. So we'll give it some time. Okay, so this is what the question looks like. So you have gender, male, female, hearing. You notice I can only pick one as I go on. Now, I want us to tackle something else. If I say other, what happens if on your survey, you want the person to specify due to the granularity that KNBS wants onto this survey? So you want to understand if someone says other, what other disability are we not capturing? So I want us to introduce something else called conditions, where if I say other, I'll have to specify what I mean by other. So I want us to go back to the survey to see how that works. So if you want someone to specify the disability that I have not captured on the list of choices, I'll add another question and call it specify the disability that you have. I'll call this code other disability. This time I'll come here and enable them to type in their own disability because clearly I haven't captured what they intend, what that other disability is. So I will save this. Now, there's one more thing I want us to showcase. How do we put in the conditions? Because now you notice when I do that, specify is still there, even when I say hearing, all this. So how do we say, if someone says other, they have to specify that disability? So let's go back to our survey form. I want us to explore additional columns onto this. So there's a hint column. For hint, yes, so we'll handle this question here. So the relevant column is used for such conditional questions where if I say yes, I can see the next question. But in this example, if I say other, I want to see the specified question. So I'll type in my command here and say for my command, and then notice there's already a guide that shows you how to type in. on this, you're saying EG, then there's a $sign, then there's parentheses to just show you how to type in. So I'll type in my condition. I'll say if someone on the previous question on disability, I'll close it, says that it is other, then they should see the specified question. So let's save this and see how it responds, the questionnaire. So you notice by default, you can't see the specified question, right? But if I say none, if I say mental, if I say visual, if I say hearing, I can't see the specified question. But if I say other, oh, sorry, it's not picked it up. Let me just correct that. So if I say other, I should be able to pick it up. Sorry, it's called other is, sorry, so this is very important. So if I say other, you notice other is code 5. Again, everything, this is the most important column. So I've not typed in other here, I've actually typed code 5. So I'll go back to that now, save, go back to my questionnaire. Okay, now it should be able to work. So if I say other, I actually have to specify, okay, I don't know what to type, but just an example of what other disability I might not have captured here. But if I say non-mental, then I don't need to see why I need to specify that. So that's how we put in conditions into the survey form. So we'll go back to the questionnaire. The other question was, so we've looked at conditions. The conditions are captured by the relevant column. Again, it's very important to note that all these rules are dependent on the name column and also on the name column on the choices worksheet. That's why on the label column, if someone says other, the condition has to read code 5. That's why when you come here, it's reading disability is equals to code 5, since that's the database functionality that the survey is dependent on. So it's not dependent on the label. The label is just what is just it's just face value. It's what the end user is seeing. But at the end of the day, then the name column is what's really important. I want us to look at one more column here, which is very important. Here, the hint column. So again, these are columns we did not explore. For hint, I want us to add a hint that pick one that lies, right? So that's how the hint column works. Then I want us to try something else before we see how the survey responds to that. I want us to go to the appearance. So you notice that there are instances where you probably do not want all the questions to be listed, especially when you have a lot of choices, it can look really cluttered. So the appearance column handles that. So when you come to appearance, you notice there are a couple of these, a Likert scale, there's all this. Now I want us to change this to minimal, and then let's see what the survey now looks like. So we've added the hint and then we've added the minimal component. So you notice this is what the survey now looks like. The hint actually appears here, pick one that applies or check one that applies. Then the minimal means that there's a drop down. So that if you have like 100 choices, you don't have to list all of them. And if you have 100 choices, let me show you how that works. A good example is counties. You wouldn't want a drop down for all that. So let me change this to sheet to show you how that works. So for something like 47 counties, you'd want something like autocomplete, where if I type Nairobi, if I just type N, it shows me counties that start with an N. So that in that instance, you'd have to use that other solution, that other form of appearance. So if I come here, if I type in, let's say, other, you notice it filters it out, right? So this works now in instances where you have like 47 choices you're giving people, then that will be really applicable. For now, we'll work with minimal since we just have a couple of choices. So I'll shift this back. Then let's go back to our questionnaire. So let's look at how do you have sections in your survey. You notice I have section 1 demographics, I have section 2 business information. So we are done with demographics, but how do we put these sections onto the survey? So let's go back to the questionnaire. Now for you to put in questions, how we've handled that is we use what is called begin groups. So begin groups is what's able to separate section 1 from section 2, demographics from survey information, from other information that you might need from the survey. So I'll come up here, I'll insert a new row, and this time I'll put in a begin group option. Since this is group 1, this is all demographic information. So I'll start with the label again, demographics. Okay, let me just call it demographic information. It's a begin group question, so that's how we separate the different sections of the survey. Begin group, this is demographics. And then anytime you open a group, you have to close it. So I'll have to come here and say end group for you to know that's the end of group 1. End. So that's the end of group 1. Now let's begin another group. Scroll down. Begin group. Now section 2, I think I've called it, let me just go back here. We're calling it business information. So this is the details of that business before we get to the actual impact questions. So this is the second, business information. That's it. So I'll start with the first question. So I'll just make it fast, and then I think there are questions we'll have to skip, but I'll try to handle as many different types of questions so that I can have all your scenarios that you might have captured. Sorry, I've copied it in the wrong. So this is organization name. Okay, let me just type in organization or company name. So this time, since again it's something you want them to type, you can't literally capture all the organization names that are out there. So you'll give them a text option. I think I've messed this up. Okay, let's start by coming here, text, business name or organization name. Then I want also to show you one example. If I say name and business or company name, okay. Okay, then the other thing also I want us to add is organization category. So again, when you come back to the questionnaire, that's the next one. We want to understand if it's a local business or a multinational. So we'll have this as well. Select your organization category. Again, this time this is a select one. I think it's becoming easier as you go on. I hope you're following. Select your organization category. Again, as we done earlier, come to the list name, replace it with the code for that question, which is category, which you can see on the name column that I have here. Then now I'll go back to the choices to give them the choices. Again, the code is category, but this time on the label, it's a local or a multinational. I'll maintain the codes, and then now let me just to emphasize, for the codes you actually don't have to use numbers. You can still come here and say instead of one, local, multi. You don't have to use code. I just like using codes because of how it makes everything simpler, and I can actually know what my codes stand for at the back end. But this is still acceptable. You can still use that option. So if I come back to the questionnaire, remember that anytime you open a group, you have to end it. So that's why we have an error here. There's an unmatched begin because we've not ended it. So we'll just finish the questions before we end the group for section 2. So we have the first question, the second question. I think we are done with there's scale of business, there's business sector. I think I'll skip some of them due to time. Let me just take one more. I'll skip that and just handle business sector. And then we can now put other types of questions. Sector. So this question is sector. Again, it's a select one. And then begin again to replace everything on your list name with the code. The code is sector. Then have as many codes, sectors as possible based on the choices you're giving them. So if I'm giving them, pasted the wrong thing, sector. So if I'm giving them like 12 choices, let me just do like 4 choices. Code 1, code 2, up to 4. Then I'll just drag this. So we have tourism, agriculture, I've forgotten the others, manufacturing, transport, and infrastructure. Let's have transport, infrastructure there. And then I'll end this group for now due to time. So let's end it. Let's look at how our survey looks like. End group. And this is business questions. So let's save it and see what our questionnaire actually looks like. Okay, so this is the questionnaire. So we have all that business information. So I want you to note that all these fields, like this is a text field, you can just know by, I have to text in, this is a select one, this is a select one again, but with the appearance that we'd put up. Business or company name, let me put a random example. I can type in the name of the business. It's a multinational, it's an infrastructure company. So we have the first bit of the survey. So I want us to get into the location. Now, how do you plug in location into this? Simply because all these dynamics play out different on different parts of the country. Nyeri has been affected differently. Kitale has been affected differently depending on location. That's why location is really important. And that's how I want to show you how to plug in the location component of this. So I'll just type in pick up coordinates of coordinates respondents location. Now for that type of question, sorry, I missed a rule. We said anytime you begin a group, you have to end a group. So we finished section 1. So we'll go now to business information. Impact questions, impact on businesses. We'll start by picking up the location of each of these coordinates. So that's begin group. Begin group. This is impact now, the impact section. So we'll start with, I'll just call this code GPS. Now for this type of question, we handle it using what is called a geopoint, a geotrace, or a geoshape. For a geopoint, it means that it's capturing the X and Y coordinate. Now, this is where the data files come in. About GIS and the types of data models it works with. We have what we call vector data. So we have point lines and polygons, and these are types of structures that come into play in the real world and how the software actually translates it into. So things like land boundaries, the software translates that as polygons, and for that we are capturing it as a geoshape. Then things like roads, rivers, highways, basically anything linear is what we're calling a geotrace. And then we're talking about XY, the location of where you're currently seated or where you're currently located, depending on how discrete you want it, then you can actually also capture it as X and Y. So for now, we want it as X and Y, which is a point. Where is that respondent or where is that business actually located? So we'll have that as a geopoint. But the beauty of it is that the software is able to capture if you want either a point line or a polygon. So if you're interested in capturing it in form of a linear or a polygon, then it's flexible enough for that. So for now, we'll use a polygon. And then I'm done. I'll do one last question. How do you think government can assist your businesses during this pandemic? Just to make this group not just have one question. Then we can now publish this survey. Assistance government. This is a select one. I'll replace again this. The code of the question is assistance. I'll come back to the choices, and then I'll replace that assistance, code 1, code 2, code 3, code 4. I'll just put, and then remember, for now, I'm not showcasing the other option when someone selects other, but that's also possible on all these, like the one I had initially. So we have tax cuts, mortgage holidays, rates suspended, suspension. Maybe we can have, okay, I'll use those 3 for now. So there we have it. And then anytime you begin group, you have to end group. So we'll end this group at this point due to time. And then this is end of impact. And then we'll save our survey. Let's see what it looks like. So the next step is publish survey, and then I will share the link on the chat box as I now go to the web to access the results. Please feel comfortable enough to fill in the survey. You can put as random choices as possible to just have a feel of what the survey actually looks like, or actually how the interface is. So that's our survey. They notice on this bit, my location, I can't really get the map now, but when I share it, you'll be able to have a map background. And then we have everything else in place. You notice we have the sections. We have impact on business, we have section 2, which is business information, and section 1, which is demographics. And this is the power of the begin groups functionality. So after that, I'll publish this. A couple of things on the settings option. You can actually put in things like your organization background, branding guidelines. For example, you can now put in colors that are in line with your organization. All that is now doable. For now, I'll have it as is. But I'll open the survey I had done initially, because I had all those questions handled on that particular survey. This is what I'll share. So the only difference is that I've put in all the questions, but I've maintained some of them that I wasn't able to add on the other one due to time, but everything else is here. For the style, let me show you how I did that to get the KNBS color. I came to the style, and then I went to the toolbar background. So this is where I replace it with their color. It's an application that actually gets you the exact colors of websites. So that's what I used. I'll share the link for that application so you can actually get the branding guidelines for probably companies you don't have the exact colors to when you're trying to design a survey for that particular instance. So after I'm done with that, I'll publish this survey now. I think there's one more thing maybe I didn't showcase, which I will as the survey is published, and this is the logo. How do you put in the logo? So for the sake of time, I'll publish this. Then as it's publishing, I'll showcase that to just save on time. We have 15 minutes. So I'll publish this now, publish. So publishing means I'm now pushing it to the web, and then I'll share the link on the chat box to just enable all of you to access it. So as soon as it's done, you'll always get a notification that the publishing, oh good. So publishing completed. I'll click on OK, then we'll go to the web. We'll give it some time. Okay, so this is what I'll copy and paste it on the chat box. Just give me 1 minute. Good. So I've pasted it on the chat box. Yes, so let's go. All of you can try filling in the survey. Then we can see the results trickling in. As you're doing that, I'll show you how I'm able to access that. So what happens is we have the web interface of the survey. So we've been configuring it on the desktop. Now for the online interface, I'll open a new tab to show you how I got there. You go to survey123.arcgis.com. So this is where you're able to view results. You're able to view the disaggregated results in terms of charts and graphs. Again, all this is done by the system. So you literally don't have to, it does all the heavy lifting, if I may call it. So this is the survey. I don't know if anyone has tried filling it in, but as you fill it in, we'll be able to see the results from here. You have 2 records. So as soon as you finish submitting it, I'll be able to see it here. But as we do that, I want to take us through this interface. For those who are filling it in, will be able to see it on this end as I'm viewing it. So the survey123.com website enables you to now access the records. And you notice the records will keep piling up as you add all this. So for now, I'll go to how to view the results. So you have a couple of icons down here. So for now, I'll go to the analyze to see how the results come in. Is anyone having challenges accessing the survey? Oh, I'm seeing someone has said on the chat box it does not exist or it's inaccessible. Just give me 1 minute. I'll check that. Let's open it again. So that's the survey. Let me just try again. Kindly, I've pasted it again for those who said it's an inaccessible. Can you try it now? Try the new link and then let me know. Maybe meanwhile, Douglas and Penina, you can also try accessing it so we can see what the challenge is. Someone from internal can try accessing it. And then let me know. So I'll just monitor the chat box as we go on to just see if anyone has managed to access it on the new link that I've just pasted. Oh, so Peter Kamau was saying it's accessible. Oh, good. So I'll go on. Thank you, Peter. So I'll go on to the survey results. Peter, if you've actually filled it up, we'll be able to see the results from here. So for now, so this is the survey. Anytime you log in into the survey 123. So maybe for those who I left behind, how I got here is I went to survey123.arcgis.com. And after that, it basically asks you to log in, and then you have now your landing page with your surveys. So we have my surveys here. So for a start, I want us to open that particular survey. So this is the survey, impact of COVID on businesses. Now, for me to open it, for us, I want us to go to the Analyze tab. So I'll click on Analyze to just see the results. So automatically the results come in already disaggregated into per question into different types of charts, which makes it really interesting and easier for reporting for those who want to just be able to have an end-to-end product that does everything for you. So you have this, you have male, female. These are the people who filled in the survey. Since it's 2 people, it's 50-50, 1 male, 1 female. You can actually change the types of charts if you want a bar chart, whichever one you want, all the way down to all the type of questions. Let's go to the last question. So you have most of them. One person is in manufacturing, another one is in information and technology. Let's see what they want government to do. So most of them want tax cuts. I think that's pretty relatable. And then the other thing I want also to showcase is the data column. So you have analyze, and then you also have the data column. So the data column allows you to view the entire, the holistic view of all the 2 people in form of a. And then maybe something else also that I'll showcase is we are able to see where each of these people are located due to the geo point that we added. So you have here, one of them is actually in Nairobi. And you notice when I click on that person who's in Parklands, it actually loads on this other side to show you their responses in terms of, so this was a female, they do not have any disability, and then the county they are in. Then the other thing that it's also important to see is that all these results can be exported. So if you like, you want to export this further to probably ArcGIS Pro to further analyze the shapefile, you can do that. If you actually want to push it back to Excel, you can also do that, or to a file geodatabase. It's possible for you to push it out of from this platform to another interface that you probably are more comfortable with. So I'll just go back to the chat box and also take questions for those who have questions.